Right, since I'm a bit behind, let's do a 2-for-1 special, starting with Monaco. Kimmy K and the other one were there, ignored Martin Brundle, then Kimmy stole other Kimmy's towel after the race, but because this towel belonged to a teenager, when she went to use it, it shattered onto the ground into a million bits.
Anything else covered in dried cum that I should know about?
The race itself was so boring that the most exciting thing to happen was that the tarmac became sentient to disintegrate itself to give us something to look at. Another year of showing how unfit this track is for modern day F1. And it's not just modern day. Crofty said during practice that the last time there was a mid-race overtake for the lead was in 1984. People have been putting up with this shit for over 40 years because it's historical. So is polio and measles. But thankfully we have vaccines for things like that now. Well, that's not good. Lance Stroll crashed, which is always funny, and then Charles crashed, which was a tragedy. Everyone in all of Monaco was given a penalty for speeding. That's pretty much all that happened. So here's the rating. Kim K being a bitch to Martin Brundle, -1. Thinking everything is for her, -1. Everyone getting penalties because of a faulty sensor but only one driver gets it overturned, -1. Charles Leclerc crashed, -1. Lance Stroll crashed, +100, but Monaco's still a waste of time. 1 out of 10. In Barcelona, nothing really happened until lap 37 when Jimmy pits and is handed something. 1 lap later, Kimi pits and now Hamilton and Leclerc are 1 and 2. Lap 40, Alonso was abducted by aliens and beamed out of the cockpit to bring out the virtual safety car. Hamilton slips in for a cheap pit stop and stays in the lead, and the virtual safety car ends as he comes out of the pit lane. Lap 61, Kimi gets bored of Jimmy and tells him to move, bitch, and gets past him into turn 1. Jimmy tries to retake the position but doesn't manage to, and he's not about to lose to this bowl of ravioli again. So remember that object he was handed earlier in the pits? After Canada, when Kimi blew up Jimmy's car with his Death to the West button, George went into his cave to create a ray gun and had it smuggled into the car with him. So George blasts Kimi and takes him out of the race as he drives by, gives him the finger, and carries on like nothing happened. Jimmy is finally becoming the ruthless killer he needs to be to win this championship. Jimmy couldn't just settle for third, and taking out Hamilton would look too suspicious, and Hamilton's fan base would likely threaten to burn down Notre Dame or something, so he blasts Charles as well, giving him P2. So Hamilton is back on the top step at only his second year at Ferrari, while Charles hasn't finished the P1 since Austin 2024. Hamilton has now moved into second in the championship, which means that he could still win the 8th title. Hashtag I have nothing in my life other than Hamilton getting the 8th title and screaming about Abu Dhabi 2021 for the last 5 years. We are so back! So with nothing happening until lap 30 something, -1. Alonso was getting probed, -2. George uses a ray gun to take out 2 drivers, +1. Hamilton wins at Ferrari in a historical moment, +1. George is a smug prick, -100. 5 out of 10.
What? Well, it's ruined!
During qualifying at Austria, Max goes off at turn 9 into the barrier. Kimi sees the yellow flags and abandons his lap. Meanwhile, George puts the foot down like Diana's driver and takes pole. The first 2 laps are pretty good, drivers battling up and down the grid, and on lap 2 the McLarens are Eiffel Towering Antonelli. 1 lap later, both Cadillacs once again went up in flames and exploded. The last time an American team had been around this much fire, they were setting kids ablaze in Vietnam. The other times are still a bit too soon. Lap 7, it's Kimi versus Charles into turn 9. Some good racing on lap 11 and Max and Lewis from turn 3 to turn 6. 11 laps later they go at it again. Max passes Hamilton at the run up to turn 3, then Hamilton retakes the position on the next corner, then turn 6 Max takes the position again. Lap 24, Sainz stops on the straight. Now Piastri is being Eiffel Towered by both Ferraris. Stroll retired a few laps earlier and Lando has to go around him in the pit lane because he can't even take the car to the pit lane limit. Lap 56, Hadjar overtakes Charles, but the TV director shows us the back of some twat's head, so we miss it. Not as egregious as the Lance Stroll replay, but still annoying. Then at the end, on the podium, Bernie Scrotumstain was on stage. Here are some of Bernie's best moments so far. A misogynist that wanted to put sprinklers on the track, convicted of fraud for £400 million, said he would take a bullet for Big Vlad, commended Hitler, compared being called short to the same as a black person being called the N-word, and had a child at 89 years old. How did that happen? That must have been like shagging a bag of crisps and then it throws a handful of sand at you. But there he is on the stage looking like he wandered out of a care home. So with some good racing, +2. Both Cadillacs exploding, which is always funny, +2. TV director being useless, -1. Bernie Scrotumstain was there, -400 million out of 10.
You think darkness is your ally?
With reports that Christian Horner is in fact not dead after being shot by Alex Albon, but perhaps coming to join Aston Martin, tensions were running high. The night before the race, we saw George sneaking around the paddock with a balaclava on. The reason we know it was him is because he was wearing loafers with what appeared to be ankle socks, and a copy of Now That's What I Call Music 2002, his favourite CD that he always carries with him. At the start of the race, Kimi, who started on pole, got a shit start and is overtaken by both Ferraris. Hamilton gets a penalty for moving before the lights, which of course is a hate crime, and on lap 11 Kimi moves into P2 at Copse. Lap 29, a wormhole opened and we all fell through it as we watched Hamilton and Verstappen at Copse corner. Yes, I know it was George, but be quiet. They go wheel to wheel into maggots, Hamilton staying ahead, then George, who had more tank fastics than Lewis, quickly gets past him on the hanger straight. 2 laps later, Hamilton goes around the outside of Brooklyn and Jimmy now has steam coming out of his ears in anger. Russell is then told he has a slow puncture and would soon deflate. Lap 38, Hamilton overtakes Max for P3. 3 laps later, Kimi's car has a strange issue where a part of it seemed to get sucked off into the suspension or something. Perhaps this is what George was up to the night before. However, Kimi is determined to stay out, even though he's slowing down faster than Diana's driver. Now on lap 48, Christian the Horn Dog Horner has now appeared at Stowe Corner. With his Italian Carcano Model 38 in hand, he lines up on the shotter, BAM! And hits Max right in the mouth, where he's pronounced dead. Luckily for Max, he's unkillable, and sits up like the fucking Undertaker, and now just has to wear a mask like Bane and say things like, "We're going mobile." Obviously this brings out the safety car, and on lap 51 of 52, the safety car is set to come in, ending with one final lap of racing. Wrong. The safety car stays out for some reason. Charles wins behind the safety car and all the fans are pissed off and Michael Massey is just laughing in his grave. Max goes past Taliban Tonelli by Eau Rouge and up the hill before Kimi passes him. But here comes Chocolate Eclair, who swoops in past Max into P2. In the background, Osama has been spun out of the race by Kim K's boy toy, who gets a 5-second penalty for causing a collision. But if you have any form of brain power, you can see that it's a racing incident, but the FIA are white supremacists. So they acknowledge he had understeer, attempted to avoid the car, had a loss of front grip from the car ahead, and it was on the first lap, but still somehow Hamilton caused the collision. What was he meant to do? Stop the car and suck off Jimmy? Osama himself said it was a racing incident. Then on lap 5, Hamilton goes down the inside of turn 1 to get past Oscar Pistorius, who's just had his blades resharpened and gets past Hamilton through Eau Rouge. 2 laps later and now Piastri is right up Leclerc's arse on the straight. Moves to the outside where Charles gives him a bit of a squeeze and they make contact, which takes off a bit of Oscar's front wing. Surely if Hamilton got a penalty for trying to avoid a collision, then Charles would get one for this too. Absolutely not, because the FIA are white supremacists. Lap 20, a virtual safety car is out so this marshal can get his steps in for the day. Ferrari double stack, Charles comes in first with Hamilton behind to serve his penalty, and in a blind rage, he ran over one of the mechanics. Because of this, Ferrari are fined €30,000. That's it. That's fucking sweeties to these people. 30k is how much Charles spends on therapy every week after being fucked by the team. Now I want to look at the official document of this fine for running over that bloke as well. Specifically the part that says the incident brought about a sporting disadvantage, which is why it wasn't a time penalty. Then what about the penalty you gave Kimi in Silverstone for track limits when he couldn't turn the car and was losing time? Was that a sporting advantage? Or in Miami when the same thing happened to Charles and he spun and had damage? Or when everyone got a penalty for speeding in Monaco when it was the sensor that had the issue and nobody actually gained an advantage because there was no rule break? And somehow only Gasly got both of his penalties overturned. The FIA are as inconsistent as George Russell's whereabouts on September 11th, 2001. With that said, Kimi wins again, George has started drawing pentagrams on the floor, Alonso has an arsehole that looks like Pengu's mouth, Kimi Antonelli wins the championship, and the FIA won't be happy until they've systematically weeded out the gene pool. On the first lap, Charles, starting in second, shits himself and falls down the grid. Lando, who started on pole, shits himself as well and lets his teammate swoop past him to take the lead. George got stuck in anti-stall and fell down to 21st place. If you don't know what anti-stall is, it's the title of J.K. Rowling's new book. Max and Lewis are battling for third, and on lap 3 Hamilton tries to go around the outside of turn 2. Hammy pits and Max tries to cover him off by pitting the next lap. Max comes out of the pits just as Hamilton passes him. The following lap, Max goes late on the brakes into turn 1 and gets past Hammy. Ferrari have an idea on lap 31. They want to box Hamilton and bring him out behind Hadjar. That way he can slow Hamilton down. Why? I don't fucking know why. Lando says he needs his engineer to do something to help him and tells him he wants to pit. The team throw a dummy but then tell him to piss off. Lando says he's faster than Oscar and then has the cheek to say, I'll pull out a 10-second gap with no tyres. So McLaren pit Piastri. He's first and according to Papaya rules gets preferential treatment. Unfortunately, they failed to take into account the sheer amount of traffic and is now stuck behind 15,000 cars. One of these cars is Carlos Sainz, who was shown not 1, not 2, not 3, but 7 blue flags and told on the radio by his engineer that Piastri was coming, yet he still doesn't move out of the way and makes contact with Piastri, which almost causes him to fall out of the car. At the time, this seemed like it could cause Oscar a potential win or podium. That was until his gearbox ran out of gears and he retired. So well done Carlos on doing something so stupid that you are now just a notch above Lance Stroll. Ted Kravitz then started glazing Lando for about 5 minutes until his microphone looked like a melted ice cream. Other than that, both Cadillacs exploded as per. Hamilton got a penalty because the FIA are racist as per, and now it's the summer break, where all the drivers either play golf, which is just an excuse to day drink and ignore your spouse, pretend to give a shit about the environment, or play something called paddle, which as far as I can tell is just gay tennis.